Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Heroine Show, the comfortable place to talk about women's leadership. Today, I am here with Missy Chicre as we discuss mentoring magic, a heroine's journey to live with purpose and intention. Hi, Missy.
Hi there.
Missy Chicre is the driving force behind Menttium Corporation, a professional mentoring company that has been at the forefront of innovative mentoring experiences for over 30 years. As a visionary leader, Missy is dedicated to creating positive change in individuals and organizations. Under her leadership, Menttium is enriching lives and strengthening organizations through innovative mentoring experiences. With a rich history in HR leadership roles at renowned corporations like Cargill, Best Buy, and Accenture, Missy's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion has taken her across the U.S. and Latin America. She is a staunch advocate for the development and enhancement of women, especially working mothers, and has been recognized for her efforts in including being a finalist for the 2016 TeamWomenMN WaveMaker Award. Missy's insights on the power of mentoring have been featured on WCCO, CBS News Minnesota, and in the Star Tribune. She holds a master's degree from the University of Minnesota and a bachelor's degree from Vanderbilt University. Beyond her professional achievements, Missy is dedicated to supporting families with children affected by celiac disease through her role on the board of directors for Twin Cities Rock. And today, we get the chance to talk with Missy. But before we do that, my name is Maria Kaufman, and today I am drinking a dark roast called El Tigre. What are you drinking, Missy?
I already had my very large cup of coffee early this morning, so now I'm on to my hint water.
Nice. It's like the power of champions, right? The breakfast of champions.
Yes.
Cool. Well, Missy, help us learn a little bit about you and your story. What are some of your early signs of genius?
I don't know about early signs of genius. What I can say is growing up, I grew up out east in Massachusetts, and I was a very high achiever from a young age. I put a lot of pressure on myself in school. My parents never had to encourage me to study or work harder or go to do my homework. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well in school. So from a young age, I was very committed to my studies and just had a strong work ethic. I think maybe that's the best way to put it. I was willing to put in the time. I remember middle school, I went to a private school out east, and at a young age of, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, we had a lot of homework, a lot of tests, a lot of projects. And I remember hearing neighbors outside swimming and playing, and I would sit in my room for hours on end preparing for final exams. I have such vivid memories of that, of beautiful sunny day, hearing kids outside playing, and I would just sit in my room and study for hours.
Wow, well, that's interesting. So was there a longing to be out there, or were you happy in your zone?
I think there was a longing to be out there, but just this commitment and dedication to whatever I was doing. So at the time, at that age, it was school. That was sort of the focus, right? Doing well in school. That was how I sort of measured success, right, wrong, or indifferent. But that's just how I measured success at that time. And I just wanted to do really well in my studies. And so I was committed, I was focused, and I just had a drive at a young age and a work ethic that I think has really taken me through life to this point. And, something that I really encourage with my children, of just having a strong work ethic, and whatever you want to set your mind to, just commit to it and go all in.
So did you have a sense for where you wanted to take that? I mean, you obviously enjoyed the excellence in hard work and being excellent in what you do, but did you know what you were going to get into early on?
No, I had no idea. I think I changed many times, like probably most people do when they're kids. You know, one week you want to be something, the next week it's something different. So I didn't know, but I had a passion at a young age for learning other languages and also for experiencing other cultures. So I started in sixth grade with Latin and Spanish, and right away just had an affinity to languages and culture, and had an opportunity to travel with my family, you know, starting at a young age. So that was an interest very, very early on. And then something I really pursued. I ended up being a Spanish major in college, and I studied abroad in Argentina, and some of my professional roles have allowed me to travel quite extensively in Latin America. And then my husband's Colombian, so there's that too.
That was a nice laying the foundation, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, interesting, because Latin is, where did the Latin come from? That's a little early, sixth grade and Latin. Tell us about that.
It was a requirement at my school, and it really is the foundation for Romance languages. So it was a great way to start. And then getting into Spanish, and then I later took a year of French, and then later took a little bit of Portuguese. So I sort of dabbled in different languages, but I'm bilingual, Spanish and English, but definitely dabbled in some other languages here and there.
Well, that's certainly an early sign of genius, because most people say, oh, whenever they think of Latin, but you just embraced it. Awesome. So then you're kind of getting through these middle school years. You're starting to get toward maybe your high school years. What was that like for you as far as maybe some career aspirations that may have been forming during your high school time period?
Yeah, so I moved a couple of times. I moved from out east. I lived in West Des Moines, Iowa for a year and a half, then moved to Minneapolis, where I now reside, and I've been here a long time now. So I think moving a couple times at sort of early teenage years, that definitely had an impact on me. I actually was really excited about the moves, even though my whole family is born and raised East Coast. And, you know, our family was like, you're moving to Iowa? Where is Iowa? I don't even know where that is on the map. But I really embraced it. I was excited for a change and something different. And again, maybe it goes back to just learning about different places and people and experiencing different things and travel. It probably all really ties together in that way. So I did most of high school here in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. And again, passion for languages. I would say that's the kind of thread through everything. So continued my studies of Spanish. And like I said, went off to college and was actually a double major in Spanish and philosophy. So I really took I'm going to just study what I'm passionate about. I wasn't so much thinking about what is the career end goal at that point. And I really had not considered teaching, but because I loved language so much, and I was trying to figure out a way that I could incorporate Spanish into whatever career I had, I came across an opportunity to do a one-year teaching fellowship going back out east where I grew up at a boarding school. And I ended up taking this teaching fellow position. It seemed like a great sort of transition thing to do the first year after college. So I actually taught Spanish. I didn't have teaching experience, but again, really immersed myself in language and culture, did a lot of work around the community service program there. So that passion for language, community, culture really kind of kept guiding me through some of those decisions.
Yeah, so I can't help but make a little bit of an inquiry here then on the culture piece, because that kind of, I have this image of you talking about the story about you inside, and other, children might have been playing outside, but culture is really kind of getting that experience and the fun aspect, so in those earlier years, certainly you weren't studying all the time. What was that like then, kind of dipping into culture and getting knowledge, expertise, and experience in culture?
Yeah. I was lucky that I was able to do quite a bit of travel starting at a young age with my family. So again, getting that opportunity to be exposed to different cultures, different people, different languages, different customs, different traditions. And I always gravitated towards that, even from a young age. And so really that enjoyment of travel and learning about culture, right? You have to immerse yourself in it. So getting to experience it is the best way to learn about culture. And so that was probably the early start of it, of just doing some travel. And then, through the years, doing things like even sleepover summer camp, and then going off to college, studying abroad for 6 months. So always really seeking out opportunities to do things like that. being able to meet new people, learn about them, understand customs and traditions. I still love that to this day. And, I always tell people I live a bilingual, bicultural, interfaith life. And so with my husband and 2 children, that's something that's really important to me, to instill those values of open yourself up and learn about other people and, kind of get involved in the community. So that's something that, really started as a young age. Now, as I'm talking to you, I kind of, thinking through the thread and how it shows up in my adult life now. And as a parent, what I want for my children as well.
Yeah, it sounds like such a rich life. Yeah. So help us then, you're getting into HR, or how did Spanish teaching lead you down the path of wherever your career went? Tell us.
Yes, not a conventional path at all. So I actually started to pursue the path to academia. So after doing that 1-year teaching fellowship, I thought, okay, maybe I want to do this, but I want to do it at the university level. And so I thought about becoming a professor of Hispanic literature. So I actually did a master's program at the University of Minnesota in Hispanic literature. And I was teaching Spanish at the time, a few courses while I was doing my graduate studies. And in the meantime, I was doing internships in business in my summers. So I started as an undergraduate doing some internships in things like communications, public relations, and then kind of kept doing that even in grad school. So I always say I sort of had 1 foot in academia, 1 foot in business. I come from a business family. And while I absolutely loved pursuing the master's degree, if you're going to commit to a PhD in Hispanic literature, you want to be really sure that's what you want to do. And I just wasn't sure. So I completed the master's, and then I said, I think I'm going to pursue business and, kind of take a different path. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in business though. So I took a step back to say, I just need to learn. I just need opportunities to be exposed to different things, to grow, to learn, to be around really smart, awesome people. So my first corporate job was as a change management analyst with Accenture. So I thought, I don't know what I want to do. So I think I'm going to go into consulting and get exposed to different businesses and different opportunities, have a really great training program, and then we'll see where it takes me.
Well, very interesting. I'm curious about what it sounds like we're getting a hint of what your thought process was during that time, but what was your bigger world of support looking like? So as you're asking these questions, it sounds like these opportunities are posing themselves for you, but what was your support system looking like to help you navigate some of those challenging decisions?
Yeah. I mean, my family at the time, like I said, I come from a business family and business background. And, my dad is certainly one of my mentors and a role model, someone I really look up to. And, he is always someone who, to this day, I still call for advice and counsel and guidance. So I definitely have people in my family and my circle supporting me and helping me think through, where do I go from here? Because I sort of pursued this academic path. My background is liberal arts, right? Philosophy and Spanish. So not the traditional sort of business background. And that's why going into change management consulting was such a great fit, because it allowed me to do the people aspect within the business. And I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, starting in change management created such a strong framework for me for everything I did afterward. Because change management is all about how do you transform culture and how do you think about bringing people through a change process. So it really created the rubric, the model, the framework. So then after that, getting into HR, and then especially roles in diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI work for me, it is change management. It is about how are you transforming culture. So having that background was so powerful. So I'm really grateful that that's where I started.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like all the perfect things were lining up along the way. Awesome framework on building that block of change management, because that must be an important key that can unlock so many things.
Absolutely.
So tell us then how your career unfolded from there.
Like I said, it's not a conventional path. And I always tell people who are either seeking advice or looking at the career, I always say, be open to possibility. because I didn't have this grand plan of, this is the job I want, this is the profession, this is the title, this is where I want to end up. I always pursued opportunities. I always looked for opportunities and was intentional about it. And then kind of going back to where I started, just go all in. So whatever opportunity presented itself or wherever I was at the time, of just go all in 100% and learn from it, maximize the opportunity, learn from people around you. And, that's what I've always done, I feel like, in my career. And that's always kind of opened the next door of what would come after. So change management consulting, awesome framework. I actually got to work on a project to help Best Buy open its first stores in Puerto Rico. So you see the Spanish tie in there, which is a really awesome opportunity to bring together change management, the Spanish language, my knowledge of Hispanic culture. And then an opportunity came up at Best Buy in diversity and inclusion. And I always tell people, it's not like I was walking around in college saying, I want to be a DEI practitioner, right? I didn't know that was a thing back then. But as I looked at this role and what DEI work really entails, it was so aligned, again, with my personal values, interests, skill set. So that's really how I launched into my HR career, because I ended up taking a diversity and inclusion role at Best Buy. And that was my first kind of formal role within HR.
Okay, so I see these intentional steps.
Yes.
Kind of building. Was there an element of purpose at the time? And how would you talk about purpose throughout your career?
Absolutely. It's really important to me that the work I'm doing is aligned with my personal values and the impact that I want to have in the world. So it's not just about, I have a job on paper and, I'm keeping busy and I'm getting a paycheck. It's like, how can I integrate my skills, my talents, my passions with the work that I'm doing every day, and then also continue to learn and grow myself. So that's why the diversity and inclusion work at the time, it was such a wonderful fit for me personally, and then also to grow my career professionally, because I was still new in this corporate space and had sort of come out of this academic track. And again, it's all about people, and it's all about culture, and it's all about transformation. So all of those elements combined, and then helping me build sort of my HR career, build the base, build the foundation, because within diversity and inclusion, every role that I've had is always working with other areas of the business, other functions. So it's such great exposure overall to the business, because you're often working with people within individual business units or with people in different functions, aligning it with a holistic look at talent management. So it gave me a great purview to many aspects of the business, and it allowed me the opportunity to collaborate and connect with many different individuals across the organizations that I worked in.
That's so fitting. I've heard you talk about transformation twice already. And of course, we're on the Everyday Heroine show. So during this time, and certainly lead us down the path if you wish, but I'm curious, I would recognize you as an everyday heroine. You're transforming yourself, you're transforming the world through the work that you do. But at this point, are you kind of realizing that that's what you're doing, or are you kind of having fun in life?
I think I was having fun, and I was learning a lot. And I was so appreciative to be surrounded by incredible leaders, incredible humans, starting to have a lot of those informal mentoring relationships. Through my work at Best Buy, I had the opportunity to work with the executive sponsor team of the employee resource groups. So I was surrounded by so much knowledge and experience on a regular basis. And I just, soaked that up and just built really strong relationships. It also really helped me to start seeing the path for my sort of corporate career, if you will, because again, when I came out of academia, I wasn't exactly sure where that path was going to lead. But then getting into human resources, getting into the diversity, equity, and inclusion work, it felt like, oh, this is such a good place for me to be. And I just really maximized every opportunity. We did so many unique things that were, really at the forefront at the time. And then what I
anything that stands out, tell us.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most memorable experiences, I would say, at the time, Best Buy had a program called the Memphis Cultural Immersion, which was a program where we would bring teams together in Memphis for a transformative diversity and inclusion experience. Part of that experience was taking people through the National Civil Rights Museum. So that, again, was a very transformative experience and really powerful to be part of people's journey around DEI. And then an opportunity came up later. So I was at Best Buy for several years, and then I moved over to Cargill, again, in global inclusion and diversity. And it allowed me to take that DEI lens and then bring it global. And actually, my first role was specifically doing work in Latin America. So again, you see the full circle. So I was traveling around Latin America doing diversity action planning work with businesses in Latin America in Spanish. So it was incredible. I mean, again, when I think about those just life-changing experiences and opportunities, it was a really impactful time, personally and professionally for me. And it also was a time of, I'll say maybe the right word is reconciliation between career and motherhood. Because I had my daughter during that time, who's now almost 13. And, I was traveling. She was an infant. I was doing all of this work. I had, starting to set pretty lofty career goals for myself and started to feel that tension of, okay, I have these lofty career goals. I love working. I love contributing. And I want time and space to be a mom and to spend time with my daughter. So those were some of the seminal moments that I think have really defined, who I am now as a person and as a leader, because there were some challenging circumstances of really reconciling those two things, which I know is, of course, very common for women in the workplace. And as you said at the introduction, I'm really passionate about how to help women define a personal model of success, whatever that looks like for each individual, because it's different for every person, but then really being able to navigate career and motherhood and do that in a way that feels harmonious and good for each individual.
Wow, that's so powerful to hear you talk about, because it is a very challenging space to be in. And it a lot of times can be perceived as a choice between one or the other. But it sounds like in that moment, you really got the opportunity to place a foothold in the definition of your authenticity. So was it kind of, did you understand that was happening, or was it something clear that was like, oh, this is the thing that I won't compromise on and I still want it all?
I mean, if I think back to some of the critical moments and times and decisions, there were things in the moment that were really hard and felt very hard that now I look back on, and I know that I had to go through that to have the perspective I have now and to have the clarity that I have now and to be able to do things like this, talk on a podcast, and hopefully help inspire and encourage other women to think through their path. Because in the moments, it is hard and the decisions feel very permanent and very long lasting. So what I would say is there were a few critical moments in my career where mentors reached out to me and really helped me see a bigger vision than the story I was writing in my mind. There was a time when, sort of on paper, I was having career success and sort of achieving the goals I set for myself. And yet I was feeling the tension with career and motherhood. I was very high stress. And I'll tell you, there were moments where I really lost my confidence. And I can remember some of those moments very viscerally, even now, because it was not a good feeling. And it felt very not authentic to who I am. And it felt very lonely because earlier in my career, I had so much fear around expressing the challenges I was facing or showing what I defined at that moment in my career as weakness, or if I open up that I'm struggling with A, B, and C, or if I feel like I can't do this, what will people think about me? Right? That's where we start to write all the stories in our minds. And I had a lot of fear of talking about it and naming it. And at one of these sort of critical moments where I felt like I had lost my confidence and I just wasn't sure about, where I was going in my sort of career motherhood journey, someone who ended up becoming a mentor of mine and dear friend who I still am in touch with today, she reached out to me. And what was so powerful in that moment is she opened up about her own story, and it allowed me to do the same. It created the emotionally safe space for me to do the same thing and let go of the fear. That was a pivotal moment for me that I will never forget, because I really needed that. I needed someone to reach out to me and say, it's okay that it's hard. It's okay that you're struggling in this moment. Let's talk about it. Let's think through different options. And I was sitting in my own perspective, writing my own stories with my own viewpoint on how this would play out. And this mentor just really demystified all of that for me and opened up a whole world of possibilities that I didn't even know were there.
Wow. Talk about magical. That's priceless.
Yes.
And this person came to you.
Yes.
Your heart might have been seeking it as well, but verbally or maybe outwardly, it didn't maybe play out as an obvious ask, but it came to you. That is pretty magical.
It was. And I always tell people now, it's like hindsight is 2020, right? Of in those moments, being open to talking, not with everybody, right? It has to be that emotionally safe space, but having those people in your life and in your network, because the story I was writing in my mind was not at all the story that was playing out. And I think often when we're early in our careers, we look up and around at the leaders around us and we make a lot of assumptions about how they got there. And when I opened up with this mentor and leader, she told me so many stories about her own career journey. And it was not the linear work up the ladder, the next. Like, she had taken career breaks. She had worked part-time for a while. She had a very different path to getting to being in an executive leadership position. And I needed to hear that. And I needed to see that, because I realized I had been making a lot of assumptions. And I had this model of success as you climb the ladder. And, of course, it's not the ladder. And, people talk about the jungle gym and the lattice and all the different things, whatever you want to call it. There are so many different paths and different ways to get to whatever your version of success is. And it's hard to see that, I think, earlier in your career when you're younger and less experienced. So that's something I really like to talk to, especially women about who are early in their careers, because we just make a lot of assumptions about people and how they get there. And we all need people in our corner. I think that's the other thing. We all need people in our corner at every stage of life and career. It doesn't end. We all need those people who can lift us up, support us, be our cheerleader, help build our confidence. And that's a lot of what a mentor does. A mentor is in your corner and should help you rise to your full potential and should help lift you up in a way that you feel inspired to design the life that you want and do it in a way that's going to feel good for your values and the way you want to lead your life.
Amazing. So this was happening about the time you're becoming a mother for the first time. So was there a breakthrough that was about to happen? Take us through that time frame, and how did you navigate that trickiness of that time?
Yeah, so I think for me, the initial, more of that sort of tension of career and motherhood really started as I was getting into, bigger, broader leadership roles, and my daughter was around toddler age. And, it's different for everybody. That journey looks different. And there were a whole host of other factors involved, but I did have those moments of, is it one or the other? Is it this or that? And sort of that, more of that polarized view of, how do I do all of these things that I want to fill my life? And that's different for everyone, whether it's being a parent or caring maybe for an aging parent or whatever other things you have in your life, right? Work is one piece of that. And it was a struggle because I had always defined so much of my identity around what I do. Even going back to where we started with being the young age and, working so hard around school and then pursuing, my career. So I had to let go of a lot of my previous notions around what is success for me, what is my identity tied to. So I had to do a lot of the self work. I always tell people, like, there's a piece in all of this in every stage of life. Like, you have to do the inner work to really assess, like, why do you think the way that you do? Why do you define success this way? Why do you think this is important? And then asking the question, like, what if that weren't true? And you have to kind of challenge yourself around it. But I ended up, I would say, taking some risks. I always say to people, I consider myself overall a pretty risk averse person, but I've taken some pretty big risks with my career. And those experiences include things like taking a leave of absence, going back to a role that was a lower level, which was hard. Again, it's the self-work though. And then it's also through my own personal journey and having opportunities like going through a coactive coaching program internally at Cargill that really allowed me to have the time and space to do the self-work. And I think it starts with values. When you get really clear on your values, it makes a lot of the other decisions about your life a lot easier to make. So I had an opportunity to do that work and to work with others in a collaborative way to help me sort of define out my values, my sort of vision statement for myself. And doing that work really helped me get a lot of clarity. And it helped me make decisions over time around life, career, etc. So I went through this process of being that very linear, like, I want to get the next thing, the next job, the next promotion, to, okay, motherhood is really important to me. How am I reconciling career and motherhood? There were hard moments along the way, again, where I'm so grateful for mentors who reached out to me and helped me process what I was going through, helped me see different options. And then I made hard decisions. They felt hard in the moment. They felt like they would have long-lasting impacts, which I think they have, but not necessarily in the way that I thought.
Right.
So going through that experience, making some of those decisions. And when I went back to my role after a leave of absence, something I did was I started a Working Mothers Network, because I had always had a lot of passion around women in the workplace because of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work I had done. But then going through my own experiences with working motherhood, I really discovered that there's something here. There's a bigger role I can play in helping to be a voice for working mothers. And what I realized is working mothers at every stage of life and career, and like ages of their kids and different roles, they were looking for community, right? Looking for ways to support each other, lift each other up, and then also to influence organizational culture, because we need workplace cultures that enable working mothers to thrive and to define their models of success and to reach leadership roles. So that really became, I would say, I felt like it was my calling to do more work in that space. And that is ultimately, there are a lot of things in between, but ultimately what led me to Menttium in 2017.
Amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your story on, basically, you're at a point where the risk is, if I take a leave of absence, I'm going to lose out on success in some way. But I love your story where you get to that point where you discover this bigger picture in this place where you're creating this community, which sounds like it might have been a branch from that linear success route up the linear ladder to truly this bigger picture.
Yes.
And that is so magical. Once again, is just having the wherewithal and the intention and the purpose to walk that path. That's a phenomenal story.
Yeah. I think intention is so important. And I've been hearing that word more and more as I attend different conferences and events of, how do you really live with intention? And I had a mentor tell me at one point in time, you have just one life. So how do you want to live it? There was this whole thing around work-life balance and work-life harmony and can you have it all? And it's like, let's just put all of that aside. You get one life. How do you want to live it? And it's so simple, but so powerful. It was a mindset shift for me. Of giving me the agency to say, I get to decide how I want to design this one life. And work is a really important component to me. Family is an important component, community, and so many other things. So if I have this one life, how do I want to live it? So you get really clear on your values, surround yourself with awesome people who see the best in you and want to help you grow into and live up to your potential. And when you look for the possibilities, it's amazing what will show up. And that is what happened with me. I'm just clear on my values, very intentional about what I wanted next, started connecting in with my network. So hone your network. Don't do it just when you need something. Be building authentic relationships wherever you are. And then it's like one coffee meeting led to another coffee meeting, led me to the owner of Menttium and former CEO Lynn Sontag. And here I am.
Now a little bit of history. So, and full disclosure, I am a mentor with Menttium, and definitely honored and privileged to have an opportunity. I love what you guys are doing. I will have to say I like that it has such a, I'm going to say, sophisticated structure to it, in that, it's easy to get in and help and support and be a mentor or a mentee. And it's just very robust in the education that goes along with it, the support system. It's almost like at every turn, there's like mentoring built in to the whole experience. So tell us a little bit about your journey here at Menttium.
Yeah. I've been with Menttium almost 6.5 years. And it was a shift, coming from corporate America and being in large corporations my entire career. And I wanted to move into something different, a small business. I wanted to do work that was aligned with my personal values and convictions. And again, the thread you see through is just the passion for people. And how do we help people rise to their potential and thrive and define their personal models of success? And I believe that mentoring is an enabler of all of those things. And Menttium has always been women-owned and women-run. Menttium started as mentoring for high potential women. Of course, we've grown and evolved since the early days, but for many years, we had programs for high potential women. And so that is still, a piece of who Menttium is. And another thing that really compelled me around Menttium is the mission, because it's enriching lives, it's strengthening organizations. And I was so excited about that mission and being part of that story of taking this long history. We've been around, like you said, more than 3 decades, and there have been so many leaders who have really taken this foundation of Menttium and been able to sustain it, grow it, evolve it, and positively impact so many people's lives as a result. So I was just so excited around the mission, the people, a team of people who are very passionate about what we do, not just what we do, but how we do it and why we do it. So there were a lot of different elements that were really compelling to me and really spoke to what I wanted to do next in terms of what's the impact I want to have, how do I want to keep learning and growing. So when I joined Menttium, it really felt like coming home in a way. It just felt very early on like this is where I'm meant to be.
Can you touch a little bit upon, because I can't help but make the connection as well between your experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion And I'll say just the need for that, and the way you can go about that. It sounds like you have experiences that allow organizations and people to open up doors to make that a better experience for everyone. How have you incorporated some of that experience into the Menttium experience?
Yeah, and Menttium has a long history in this space. As I said, we started out as mentoring for women, also developed programs for professionals of color. And so this piece around DEI and just inclusion and belonging overall, I see mentoring as an enabler of all of those things. So when we partner with our client organizations, we're understanding what are your human capital needs? What are you trying to achieve around talent in your organization, around culture, around inclusion? Because again, I see it's a puzzle, and I think mentoring is one piece to the puzzle to really be a strong enabler of how do you develop your talent, how do you engage and retain them, how do you create access and visibility. So mentoring is a really powerful enabler of all of those things. So when we talk to our clients, we're really understanding, like, what are you trying to solve for in your organization, and how can we partner with you to help you do that through mentoring?
Wow, so powerful. Yeah, and certainly something, from an organizational standpoint, it's hard to stay in the forefront of that when you're just trying to do your business. So it's critical to have these other relationships, and opportunities and people with that knowledge to help everyone expand and grow.
Yes. And, the world is very complex. I think everybody feels that in some of the same ways, in some very different ways right now. And we're confronting workplace challenges we've never confronted before, socioeconomic complexities we've never faced before, social issues we've never faced before. And I truly believe that people need an emotionally safe space to delve into everything they're working through from a career, workplace, life perspective. So, of course, we have a career, professional focus in our mentoring programs, and we don't separate, right, who we are as people and what we're doing in the workplace. So there is this notion of whole person mentoring. And what I'm so proud of with Menttium and how we do things is we continue to put the human at the center. So I like to say human-centered mentoring, because our process, the way we match people, we are getting to know our mentees and mentors, which, you've probably experienced on the mentor side, so that we can make the most effective matches. And I truly believe that we all need an emotionally safe space, whether it's through a mentoring relationship or through our community or just through, other relationships we have in our lives, to really be vulnerable and authentic about what we're going through, what we're facing, what our goals and aspirations are. And then to have a person who can help guide us, be a sounding board, talk about their own experiences, right? Where it was easy, where it was hard, where they had success, where they had failure, and then be able to learn from each other. There's so much power and value in that.
Awesome. So I'm curious, at present day now, your journey is just phenomenal, truly an everyday heroine. Is there anything, tips and tricks about purpose and intention? Or at this point, are you kind of like on automatic pilot? Does it seem natural? Or do you put together any daily habits? What can you share with the audience about your personal or professional daily life?
Yeah. So a few things I would share. One is I always take a mindset of gratitude and humility. And that is something that is really important to me. And in my own journey and just kind of where I've been, where I am now, I do not have a day that goes by that I don't feel a sense of gratitude for my journey, the path, where I am today, the fact that people believed in me along the way and created opportunities for me to grow and thrive. That is so important. And I think I said this earlier of just like, who are your advocates? Who are your cheerleaders? Who are the people who are lifting you up? And I would say it takes like special people to really be able to allow others to shine. There's that same of like empowered women, empower women. And I think we as women need to continue to empower each other and create space for others to grow and rise. That is so important and something that I believe in so deeply, something that I try to do, with other women in my circle, whether it's through Menttium or just, in my community or other people I collaborate with. How are we finding opportunities to lift each other up? So I practice a mindset of gratitude and humility. I surround myself with people who are positive and who have, again, aligned values and want to make a positive impact in the world. So that is very uplifting, when you're very purposeful about your circle and who you surround yourself with. And, one of my favorite books is The Art of Possibility. And it's definitely part of my mantra of look at the world as a world of possibilities. It's so easy to look out and this is what is, it will never change. This is what it has to be. And through my own journey, I really try to take this mindset of what is possible. And I have really found that when you open yourself up to what is possible, you're intentional about what you want and need, the possibilities show up, the doors open, the windows open. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. And I love the book, The Art of Possibility. So highly recommend it. That's been something that has really guided me. I read these morning affirmations, which I love. So I have them sitting on my desk here, actually.
Awesome. I love it.
I read one every morning, and it's just a nice way to start out the day with something positive and sort of building yourself up. So I think there's just so many little things we can do in a day to set our mindset. And that's really important.
Yeah, so important. And I have to say, when I started my career as an engineer, over 30 years ago, really, really needed mentors, but they weren't really accessible or available, or I really didn't know how.
Yeah.
Not that they weren't, because I believe that they probably were more available than I thought they were. But to me, my external world was screaming, not a possibility. But over that time, things have changed. And it's been a wonderful discovery, for me to get connected with Menttium. So things do change. And at least from my perspective, love to share information on Menttium. What are your thoughts about moving forward? What can the world look like? What are the possibilities of women's leadership 100 years from now if we can live more purposefully with intention and open up to the magic of mentoring today?
That's a big question. Let me dissect it maybe one small piece at a time. I think it is so important for us to be role models for other women and to really express, model, and reinforce behaviors around confidence. I mean, I have an almost 13-year-old daughter, and she's probably so sick of me talking about all these things because we talk about it a lot. But we have a lot of talks about girl power at our house. And it is just so important that as women, we are expressing, modeling, and reinforcing behaviors around confidence, possibility, going after your dreams. I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy and fluffy, but I think we have to model it so that they can see what is possible. And then we also need to invite men and others into this story. So at Menttium a few years ago, we developed a pilot program around women mentoring men. And the premise really was, how do we leverage mentoring to engage men as allies in gender equity? And it came from a place of, let's partner, let's work together. This isn't about calling people out. This isn't about shame and blame. It will take all of us to create workplaces in a world where we have gender equity and gender parity. So how do we partner? How do we invite people into the story? How do we also engage men in this work? And then what is the vision for what we want to see? And then as leaders, we need to model it, and we need to create the spaces for women to grow, develop, advance. We have to do our part. And I think that is just so important because people need role models. They need to be able to look around and see role models. And that's not just for women, that goes for in general. Like people need to be look around and see role models. That is so important. And we have to create these spaces for all different kinds of leadership development opportunities. It's sort of like this suite of leadership development. Like, what do people need at different stages? And then how do we bring women and men together to truly create culture change? Because for me, that's what it is. It's culture change. Representation is important. All the different opportunities that come around leadership development are important. But I think at its most basic foundational level, it comes to culture. How are we creating cultures where we have equity, we have inclusion, we have belonging? And I believe that that really starts at the top and how leaders are modeling the behaviors and then what they expect from everybody else.
Awesome. I love it. It's definitely paving the future for what is necessary in the highest light, I'll say. I love it. Wish I had it 30 years ago. Glad it exists now.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is, someone put in the comments, networking is key. It is key. Build authentic relationships wherever you are, whatever your role is, work, community, personal. Take the time to build authentic relationships because that is where the magic happens. And don't be afraid to ask. You talked about this in terms of earlier in your career. I talked about earlier in my career being afraid to open up, being afraid to reach out to people. Let go of that fear, build the relationships, and then ask. You'll be surprised. People want to help. And people are usually very open to being a mentor, whether that's even an informal mentor. Look for the people who can be your informal and formal mentors, and then ask. You'll be amazed by the answers you get.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So as we're kind of wrapping up a little bit here, is there anything else that I didn't ask that you'd love to share with the audience? That was a really, really powerful story.
I think, we've covered a lot in a short amount of time.
We have. It's amazing.
I think maybe if I were to summarize again, some of my learnings through my journey, and I'm still on a journey and I'm still learning every day, but it's, design the life you want, get clear on your values, be intentional, and just remember you have one life and you get to decide how you want to live it. I would also say, don't let a person, a circumstance, a company decide your fate. I think that's a really important one. And it goes along with building that confidence to feel like you have the agency and autonomy to make decisions for your own life. And then again, it's the open yourself up to possibility. And that probably gets into, I know you're going to ask me about my favorite quote, but it kind of leads in perfectly.
Right. Perfect.
My favorite quote, which I've been sharing, I think probably since high school, most people see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? And that to me, keep asking, why not? Look around you and say, why not?
I love it. It brings me chills. Awesome. Well, Missy, thank you so much for being on the show today. Your story is definitely a game changer. You are definitely an everyday heroine. Thank you for your time and your story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
The Everyday Heroine is the comfortable place to discuss women's leadership because I am on a mission to help the world discover the truth about what women are capable of. For more conversations about women's leadership, follow me on LinkedIn or subscribe on YouTube. You can also contact Missy Chicre on LinkedIn with the links that I will provide in the show notes. Have a great week. Enjoy your adventures and journey responsibly. Thanks, Missy.
Thank you.